Welcome back. Not only is today a Monday, but it's the day you and I dreaded. The day when the Iran nuclear agreement officially went into effect. So now all sides have to start delivering on the promises they made. That means Iran must limit 95% of its enriched uranium stockpile, and the Obama administration has started steps that will lift sanctions once Iran meets those conditions. So, what does all this mean, not only for the Middle East, but for the rest of us? Let's talk about it. From Newsmax, Washington, we welcome in my old congressional colleague, Michael Patrick Flanagan of Illinois. Mike's currently the president of Flanagan Consulting. Also with us from Newsmax, Washington, retired U.S. Army Colonel Patrick Murray. Patrick is the author of the book, Government is the Problem. Gents, we think there's a big problem with this Iran deal. And now there are concerns that Iran has not fully answered questions about their efforts to secretly develop new technologies. This fundamental dishonesty, is there any way to get past it? Mike Flanagan, to you first.
Well, are you talking about the fundamental dishonesty in Tehran or at 1600 Pennsylvania?
Well, probably both, but for now we'll focus on Tehran.
Well, the incredible amateur running our foreign policy in Tehran, or in here for Tehran, and at their disposal, continues to make one gaffe, one huge mistake after another. And if you think, when they brought in him, they knew that he would be an amateur, so they brought in, to bolster him, Biden and Hillary, and that's really worked out great. Thank goodness we got that done. And so what you have is this amateur helping Tehran because he's interested in getting the deal. He doesn't care what the deal is as long as the deal is made. And if that means throwing Israel under the bus or anyone else, it doesn't matter as long as the deal is made. And I'm afraid of two things right now. First, they're now talking to the North Koreans about ending that war, and it'll certainly be on their terms, and God knows what that means for our friends in Seoul. And the second thing I'm terrified of is that they'll actually try to implement this Iranian deal. And if they do that and they free up $160 billion, that's going directly to terrorism, and we are going to have problems like we can't imagine having them funded beyond their wildest dreams.
Patrick, we understand, and we heard reports about Tehran testing a ballistic missile earlier this month. It's not banned by this specific agreement, but elsewhere in international law. What do you expect next out of Tehran?
Well, JD, they did test a ballistic missile last week in violation of United Nations sanctions. They just convicted our Washington Post reporter of espionage. Tehran is going to do what Tehran is going to do. Next month, they're holding their annual How to Get Rid of America conference. They've been doing it for years, and they're going to continue to do this. Look, the real implementation date, JD, was 90 days ago when the Security Council approved this Iranian deal. Since then, the United Kingdom has lifted sanctions on about 24 Iranian banks and other businesses. France has a 100-man delegation as we speak, led by their foreign minister, sitting in Tehran right now, cutting deals. Germany trade is up with them. India, Iran is getting everything they want, and they haven't had to do anything yet with regard to this deal.
We've got about 2 minutes left, and we need to turn our attention to Israel, specifically the terror attacks there. Very interesting and revealing what our commander-in-chief had to say. Take a listen.
All people in Israel and in the West Bank to recognize that this kind of random violence isn't going to result in anything other than more hardship.
Mike Flanagan, random violence, this moral equivalency our president seems to use on both Israel and the Palestinians. Your take on that?
It's murder. It's murder, plain and simple. And imagine them funded at 10, 20, 30 times the level they're funded now. Able to buy all the suicide bombers they want, able to have all the weapons in there that they need. The Russians, who are cozy with everyone, is now a surrogate military for the Syrians, who the Syrians, by the way, are the proxy government for Lebanon. You think actually the Palestinians are going to have any problem getting whatever they want routed to them? None at all. This is disastrous foreign policy, and it is disastrous for us on a strategic level, but on a tactical, material, where I live level, it's doom for Israel. This has got to be turned soon.
And Patrick, it's interesting to hear, I guess Secretary Kerry's going there, the press, the mainstream press calling about growing tensions. Final 20 seconds. Why won't people call it what it is, Palestinian terror attacks?
Well, that to Michael's point, my concern is that a third intifada is brewing, JD. You have Hamas calling for it. They call for days of rage for a third intifada. The Iranian mullahs, not surprising, are calling for the same thing. And part of it is that the world knows, especially the Iranians and their surrogates, that Washington, D.C., for the first time, doesn't have Israel's back, and that's a problem, and they're going to make hay while the sun shines.
We'll have to leave it right there. We are coming back with more after this.